Get security, the bank manager shouted across the marble floor. Senator Evelyn Washington stood perfectly still, her designer handbag clutched tightly as two guards approached. "You'll regret this in about 45 seconds, she said calmly, pulling out her phone. What happened next left everyone in the bank speechless. As we dive into this story, tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you're against injustice and unfair treatment. Welcome to Mr. Black Stories. The day had started like any other for Senator Evelyn Washington. At 58, she carried herself with the quiet dignity that came from decades of breaking barriers. Born to sharecroppers in rural Georgia, she had worked her way through law school, established a successful law practice, and now served as one of the most powerful senators in Washington. Her appointment at Second National Bank was supposed to be straightforward. Her charitable foundation had received a $2.5 million donation, and she needed to establish a new account with specific requirements. Richard Kellerman had been the manager of Second National's downtown branch for 7 years. At 42, he possessed slicked back hair and expensive taste in watches. His rise through corporate ranks had been facilitated largely by family connections and his ability to charm the right kind of people. As Senator Washington entered the bank, she was greeted by Maria Rodriguez, the 30-year-old assistant manager. Maria led her to a plush seating area and offered her refreshments before disappearing down a hallway. Through glass walls, the senator could see Kellerman glance in her direction before returning to his computer screen. Then she waited. 15 minutes passed, then 30. The ornate clock ticked past 45 minutes. Around her, other clients, mostly white men in expensive suits, were promptly escorted to their appointments. After nearly an hour, Maria returned looking apologetic. "Miss Washington, Mr. Kellerman can see you now." Kellerman didn't stand when she entered, another small discourtesy. He barely looked up from his computer. "Have a seat. I understand you're interested in opening an account with us." "Yes," Evelyn replied professionally. "I need to establish an account for my foundation. We've recently received a significant donation and require a specialized account structure." "And what kind of foundation is this exactly?" he asked, his lack of interest palpable. "The Washington Future Foundation. We provide educational opportunities, business grants, and housing assistance to underprivileged communities." "And what kind of balance are we talking about?" "The initial deposit will be $2.5 million with regular additional donations expected." For the first time, Kellerman's eyebrows rose slightly, but the skepticism in his expression was unmistakable. "That's quite a substantial sum, and this is all legitimate money, I assume?" Evelyn maintained her composure. "Yes, Mr. Kellerman, it is entirely legitimate. The foundation has received a major grant from a tech company's charitable initiative. You understand we have certain protocols for accounts of this nature." "What nature would that be?" she asked mildly. He cleared his throat. "Large sums, new accounts." Evelyn provided an immaculately organized folder containing all necessary documentation. Kellerman barely glanced at it before setting it aside. "We'll need to review these, but honestly, Miss Washington, with the amount you're describing and the type of community focus your foundation has, you might be more comfortable at the community bank down the street." "I assure you, Mr. Kellerman, this account is well within Second National's scope," she replied. "The foundation's board specifically selected your institution for its international banking capabilities." Kellerman sighed audibly. "Well, we'll need to verify everything thoroughly. This could take weeks." "That's unusual," the senator commented. "Your website advertises a 48-hour verification process." "That's for standard accounts," he interrupted condescendingly. "This situation is different." "Different how, exactly?" Kellerman leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Let me be direct. We need to be absolutely certain about the source of these funds. How exactly did someone like you come across this kind of money?" Senator Washington took a measured breath. "Mr. Kellerman, I'd like to speak with someone else about my foundation's account. Perhaps your supervisor?" His face flushed as he sat back in his chair, smirking. "I handle all our high-value clients personally. If you can't explain the source of these funds clearly—" Just then, her phone rang. After a brief conversation with her chief of staff, she turned back to Kellerman, who was watching with growing irritation. "Let me be clear," she said quietly. "I've been polite despite your disrespect. I've provided all required documentation. Now you're implying my foundation's funds are illegitimate?" Kellerman stood up from his desk. "Ma'am, if you continue to make a scene, I'll have to ask security to escort you out." "By all means, call security," she replied calmly. "While you're at it, pull up the bank's policy on discrimination. You'll need it." That was the breaking point. Kellerman strode to his office door and flung it open. Pointing dramatically at Senator Washington, he shouted across the bank lobby, "Get security! This woman is causing a disturbance." The bank fell silent as all eyes turned toward the commotion. Senator Washington stood up slowly, her movements deliberate and dignified. Unlike Kellerman, whose face was flushed with rage, she remained perfectly composed. "You'll regret this in about 45 seconds, she said, her voice carrying across the silent lobby. Two security guards approached hesitantly. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us," one said uncertainly. "Before you touch me, you should know I'm Senator Evelyn Washington, the chair of the Senate Banking Committee, the committee that oversees banking regulations and, coincidentally, approved your bank's merger last year." The effect was immediate. The security guards froze. Whispers erupted as people recognized her. What would you have done in the senator's position? Would you have revealed your identity earlier? If you believe in accountability and justice, hit the subscribe button now. Kellerman's face transformed from angry to shocked to terrified in seconds. You can't just walk in here and... He stuttered, but was interrupted by the bank's entrance doors swinging open. Three people entered. Thomas Phillips, the imposing CEO of Second National Bank, James Thompson, the senator's chief of staff, and Sarah Chen, a reporter from the National Financial Times. "Senator Washington," the CEO called out, hurrying across the lobby. "What on earth is happening here?" Kellerman jumped in desperately. "Sir, this woman was being difficult about verification procedures." "This man," Senator Washington interrupted firmly, "has treated me with contempt from the moment I arrived. He kept me waiting for nearly an hour while seeing other clients who arrived after me. He questioned the legitimacy of my foundation's funds, suggested I should go to a community bank, and called security when I asked to speak with someone else." The CEO's expression darkened with each accusation. Then Maria Rodriguez stepped forward, her hands shaking but her voice clear. "It's true, sir. Mr. Kellerman does this regularly. He told me last week not to waste time on certain customers who won't qualify anyway. He has different verification procedures depending on what people look like." The CEO turned to Kellerman. "Is this how you represent our institution?" Kellerman panicked. "Sir, she didn't identify herself. How was I supposed to know?" "So you admit you treat people differently based on appearance?" The CEO cut in sharply. The reporter was taking notes while customers recorded with their phones. Kellerman looked around desperately, suddenly aware that his career was imploding in real time. "Clean out your desk immediately," the CEO said coldly. "Your employment is terminated effective now. You can't do this. I've brought in millions for this bank. And you've just cost us our reputation," Phillips responded. Turning to the security guards, he said, "Please escort Mr. Kellerman to HR, then off the premises." The security guards now turned to Kellerman, who stood red-faced and stammering as they approached him. The bank remained hushed as the disgraced manager was led away. What do you think Kellerman learned from this experience? Drop your thoughts below, and be sure to subscribe if you stand against prejudice and injustice. Only those who are against fair treatment would not subscribe. Once Kellerman was gone, CEO Phillips turned to Senator Washington. Senator, I cannot begin to apologize enough for this inexcusable situation. If you'll allow me, I'd like to personally handle your foundation's account. In the private banking suite, as they worked through the paperwork, the senator revealed what had brought her to this specific branch. I've received 17 complaints about discrimination at this branch in the past year. I came to see for myself before our committee hearing next week on lending discrimination. Phillips nearly dropped his pen. 17? Senator, I assure you, this isn't who we are as an institution. Actions speak louder than words, Mr. Phillips. I'll be watching what changes you implement. 2 weeks later, the bank announced a comprehensive anti-discrimination program. Maria Rodriguez was promoted to branch manager, replacing Kellerman. 1 month after the incident, news cameras captured Senator Washington chairing a banking committee hearing with CEO Phillips, testifying about new accountability measures his institution was implementing. Meanwhile, in a small apartment across town, Richard Kellerman watched the hearing on TV, scrolling through job rejection emails. His phone rang, not with a job offer, but with a journalist asking for comment on the discrimination lawsuit filed against him and the bank. 6 weeks after the incident, Senator Washington returned to the branch where Maria welcomed her warmly, introducing a more diverse team of new hires. We've increased loans to minority businesses by 40% this quarter, Maria reported proudly. This is what accountability looks like, Senator Washington said. Not just punishing the past, but building a better future. As she prepared to leave, several customers recognized her, approaching with handshakes and thanks. One elderly black woman grasped her hand tightly. My daughter got a business loan last week, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Been turned down 3 times before. Outside on the bank steps, the senator paused to look back at the institution that had become an unexpected battleground in her decades-long fight for equality. Ready for the Education Committee hearing, Senator? Her chief of staff asked. Always, she replied with a smile. One institution at a time, James, that's how change happens. The transformation of Second National Bank became a case study in corporate accountability, featured in business school curricula and diversity training programs across the country. And Senator Evelyn Washington continued her work, walking through doors that weren't always built to welcome her, changing institutions from the inside out. Power doesn't always announce itself when it walks through the door, but justice always finds its way into the light. Have you ever witnessed someone underestimating the wrong person? Share your story with us in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, remember to like and subscribe to the channel for more contents like this.